Welcome to the lecture series in food microbiology. In this lecture, we are going to see a few more natural toxins or toxicants which are present in the cereals or in the crops which we consume normally as a part of our diet. The very well-known example, one of the well-known examples are the solanin group of glycoalkaloids. As the name indicates, solanin group, these are normally seen in Solanaceae family. The steroidal alkaloids, the very famous among them are the alpha-solanin, the alpha-chaconine and the tomantine. Like we have discussed this earlier, that Lycopersicum nigrum, so esculentum, the tomato, they do contain alkaloids which are toxic. So, the alpha-solanine, the alpha-chaconine and tomantine, these are also belong to the group terpenoids. These are found in the plants of the genus Solanum, like potato, the Solanum tuberosum, eggplant, which is Solanum melangina, and tomato, which is Lycopersicum esculentum and also Solanum lycopersicum. And this is also present in berries of nightshade, Solanum dulcamara, Solanum marinum and Solanum nigrum. So, very common in family Solanaceae. And most of the solanaceous plants, the leaf, the berries or the fruits are a part of our normal diet. The usual content of the glycoalkaloids in the tuber is 20 to 100 milligram per kilogram, whereas the actual content depends upon the variety, the growing conditions, the place, the climate, the light conditions, fertilization, the ripeness, the number of mechanic injuries and storage conditions. So, based on all these factors, there can be a very high concentration of the glycoalkaloid in the tuber or in the crop or very less component. So, it is an additive factor, it is not a one particular factor. So, depending upon all these things, and also variety becomes very important here. So, which is the variety of the solanaceous plant you are talking about? Where was it grown? What are the conditions during growing? Was it injured? What did it have a pathogen attack? What are the light conditions? So, all these factors will affect the accumulation of the glycoalkaloid present in the crop concerned. And during sprouting, as well as while being exposed to the sun or by infected by fungi, the content of glycoalkaloids can rise up to 5000 milligram per kilogram. So, from a 20 or a 25 milligram per kilogram, this is a drastic rise to 5000 milligram per kilogram during sprouting or when it has been attacked by a fungus. The daily toxic dose of solanin and chaconine, so this is what we call as the LOEL dose. So, what we can consume on a particular day without apparent effect. This is for humans is 2 to 5 milligram per kilogram. The lethal dose is 3 to 6 milligram per kilogram. So, and since there is not much an apparent difference between a 2 to 5 milligram per kilogram and 3 to 6, the two doses are practically overlapping, even overlapping. And among this, when you compare solanin and chaconine, alpha chaconine is more toxic than alpha solanin. And both these alkaloids are also presumed to be teratogenic. There is another very famous illness which is caused, which is because of the edema of the extremities, which is called as the epidemic dropsy. This is the formation of edema of the legs or the extremities by poisoning by Argemon mexicana. Argemon mexicana is commonly called as Mexican prickly poppy. The components here which are toxic or which are damages are the sanguinarin and the dihydrosanguinarin. So, this is the two components, the toxic alkaloids which are present in the argemon oil, and the presence of these two toxins cause capillary dilatation, proliferation and increased capillary permeability. So, in areas where mustard oil is normally used as a cooking oil or the use is rampant, there is adulteration of this mustard oil by using argemon oil. Mustard oil per se will not harm because you are used to it as a cooking. Yeah, it does have, brassica species do have some effects, but then normally if you are used to cooking in it will not do much harm. But when this mustard oil has been adulterated either deliberately or accidentally by this arginine oil, then you will have what you call as proteinuria, meaning loss of, specifically the albumin from the diet would be lost, specific loss of albumin, as a result of which will cause edema, as would happen in a necrotic. So, if you see extreme in both the legs here, you have the edema. In this picture also, this is the where you see the edema, see this picture. So, both the extremities in both the legs, you are seeing the resultant edema because of either deliberate or accidental adulteration of mustard oil with arginine oil. Leakage of the protein rich plasma component into the extracellular compartment leads to the formation of edema. The hemodynamic consequences of this vascular dilatation and permeability lead to a state of relative hypovolemia with a constant stimulus for fluid accumulation and salt conservation by the kidneys. So, this is the extra effect. So, how does the disease manifest? Illness manifests with gastroenteric symptoms, and this is followed by cutaneous erythema and pigmentation. This now is followed by respiratory symptoms like cough, shortness of breath and orthopnea, and this will lead to right-sided congestive cardiac failure. So, it is a progressive manifestation of the symptoms starting from edema to gastric emptyms to the pigmentation, followed by respiratory ailments. Epidemic dropsy occurs as an epidemic in places where mustard oil is used as a cooking medium. So, this is very common in areas where mustard oil is a normal cooking component. Then you have either deliberate adulteration or accidental adulteration with arginine oil. So, when the general population is consuming that, you will have this as an epidemic there. That is why it is called as an epidemic dropsy. This is the normal Brassica gentiana, the mustard plant. This is the arginine poppy, whose oil is used as an adulterant in mustard oil, the result of which causes the pandemic or the epidemic dropsy. So, the next topic which we are going to discuss is the herb-drug interactions. Herbal drugs, as you know, have been a part of what we call as traditional medicine, or even what we call as a alternative therapy. We have Siddha, we have Ayurveda, we have so many, you have the Chinese traditional medicines. So, all these are part of your what we call as the medical therapy, and many of the plants, medicinal plants and their use for specific diseases or as in combination with so many others as a therapeutic product have been very well known since millennia, and in some cases they have proved to be sources of currently used medicines. For example, as origin of aspirin from the Salix plant, or even atropine for eye diseases. We knew that this particular plant or this particular extract can be used, then the component at its medical activity was noted, and then we have the synthesis, artificial synthesis of the particular component which is used in your regular allopathic medicine. So, this knowledge, traditional knowledge which has then been taken up to be the basics of the formation of the current allopathic medicines. An increasingly recognized problem with the use of these many products is their interaction with the effects of established therapeutic agents used in Western medicine. Your normal diet contains many of these medicinal plants which we use as herbs, and these herbs have components which are medicinal, which are consuming. So, when the problem will come when you are taking drugs of the Western medicine along with these herb preparations, which are, because you want to consume, we are using allopathic as well as the traditional medicines, herbal remedies together. So, some will work synergistic, some would be contraindicatory. So, unless you know which works synergistically and which of the component will be acting as an antagonist, you are bound to have these herb drug interactions which will manifest as a symptom or as a disease if you are unknowingly consuming it. A very well known example in this herb drug interactions is the use of St. John's wort. This is a very common plant, a very common herb which is used for self-treatment of mild to moderate depression in Western countries. The component present here are the polyphenolic components. Among the polyphenols, what is very rampant here is hypericin. So, St. John's wort, which is a known traditional antidepressant, produces polyphenolic components, especially hypericin. So, this hypericin can decrease the beneficial effect of the anticoagulant effect of warfarin. Now, Western medicine uses warfarin as an anticoagulant. So, if you are taking St. John's wort and warfarin together, then the effect of warfarin will be reduced, because hypericin, which is present in St. John's wort, see what happens is that the expression of CYP1A2 and CYP3A4, these are two enzymes which are expressed in the liver, and these enzymes are required for the activity of warfarin. So, when these two enzymes are inhibited, because hypericin will inhibit the production of these two enzymes. So, without these two enzymes, the drug warfarin which you take will not have any effect. So, when you take St. John's wort as an antidepressant along with warfarin as an anticoagulant, warfarin is not, you will have the antidepressant effect, but you will not have the anticoagulant effect of the warfarin. The St. John's wort and cyclosporin co-administration after organ transplant can result in therapeutic failure of cyclosporin and transplant graft rejection. So, along the use of St. John's wort and again cyclosporin as an antibiotic after an organ transplant, they will also act as antagonists to each other, because cyclosporin will not work here. So, the graft would be rejected. The second very well known herb which is used is grapefruit juice. Grapefruit juice contains narangin and bergamottin. This again are both of these, narangin as well as the bergamottin, are inhibitors of CY3A4 and CYP1, the two enzymes which are very active in liver. We already saw what happened here is that when grapefruit consumption is there, it can decrease the metabolism and increase the potency of several drugs including cyclosporin, estrogens and others. So, normally St. John's wort decreases the metabolism, it inhibits certain enzymes, but here grapefruit juice actually increases the potency of many drugs including cyclosporin. Remember, cyclosporin was inhibited by using St. John's wort, but here the activity of cyclosporin and many estrogen based drugs can be increased by the use of grapefruit juice. This effect can be very strong, as indicated by, as observed in 9-fold increase in serum concentration of the cholesterol lowering drug simvastatin following grapefruit juice consumption. So, when simvastatin was taken along with grapefruit juice, there was 9-fold increase of serum concentration of this and more absorption of this drug and its activity. So, it promoted the activity more, it promoted more activity of the drug concerned than when it was consumed plain without the grapefruit juice. Like spinach, which is commonly consumed, is watercress. This watercress contains some unidentified phytochemicals. These phytochemicals are potent inhibitors of another enzyme, CYP2E1. This enzyme actually helps into the metabolism of many drugs, including acetaminophen. Acetaminophen, as you know, is an ingredient of paracetamol, Tylenol, all these things, and the muscle relaxant, the chlorzoxazone. So, for the metabolism of acetaminophen and many muscle relaxant drugs, you require the enzyme CYP2E1. A single treatment with 50 grams of watercress delayed the clearance of chlorzoxazone by over 50% in human. See, when a drug enters the body, it will be metabolized, it will be present in the cell for some time, and as it gets metabolized slowly, it will be broken down into components. Some would be excreted, the active components would be absorbed by the body. So, it will gradually, the drug will get cleared from the body, but when watercress was 50 grams of watercress was taken as a treatment, the clearance of the drug chlorzoxazone was reduced by 50%, was delayed. Similar to what we have seen earlier, tomatoes eggplant and potatoes. As we saw earlier, they contain the solanaceous glycoalkaloids that can delay the recovery from anesthesia due to acetylcholinesterase estimation. So, these glycocolins like your alpha-chaconin, solanin, which are present in these, they can have inhibit the acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, the receptors, as we have seen earlier. So, when these junctions, neurotransmitter muscular junctions, the neurotransmitter junctions are inhibited, recovery from anesthesia will be delayed. So, consumption of this will be counter effective here. Similarly, calcium containing dairy products like milk, yogurt, cheese and supplements can block gut absorption of tetracycline antibiotics. So, if you have been prescribed with tetracycline antibiotics, it is better to consume with plain water rather than consuming with tea, coffee, milk or any of the components. So, only then the drug metabolism would work and the drug would be effective against the particular pathogen concerned. Otherwise, the absorption, once you swallow it, the gut absorption of tetracycline based antibiotics will not happen because of the counter effect of the calcium which is present in the dairy products. Charboiled meat products contain polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Now, PAH, the presence of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and their negative effects have been very well known for ages. So, what happens here is that when PAH is present, they will activate CYPs. CYP is cytochrome P450 family. This is a superfamily. Cytochrome P450 is a superfamily which contains many enzymes which has heme as a cofactor. So, the central molecule is heme. The structural modifications can be different, but almost all of these enzymes contain heme as a cofactor, and all of these act as monooxygenases, which are very important. So, when these PAHs are present, they will induce the cytochrome P450 family. So, when this is induced, metabolism is increased and the metabolism of anti-asthmatic drugs, warfarin, steroid hormones and other drugs is increased, more absorption would be there. Other herbs with established adverse effects on various medications include garlic, ginseng, ginkgo, milk thistle, licorice, echinacea, valerian, ephedra, betamelon, lycium, papaya, borage and fenugreek. Most of these are used as common both in Eastern as well as Western cuisine. For example, garlic can interfere with the activity of saquinavir. This is an antiviral drug and increase the plasma concentration of the drug concerned and reduce the plasma concentration of the drug concerned. It can also interfere with warfarin and paracetamol, altering the bleeding time and changing the pharmacokinetics of paracetamol. See, normally paracetamol is very well known as that it can reduce the body temperature. Of course, the muscular pain is also reduced. Along with it, it promotes bleeding. It can act as a slight anticoagulant. But when it is interfering, when you combine it with warfarin, the pharmacokinetic activity of paracetamol will be changed. For example, lycium, and that is very well known with garlic. Lycium barbarum, otherwise this belongs to the family Solanaceae, Mangifera indica, our common mango, Carica papaya, the bitter gourd. All these, fenugreek, all these are normal part of the diet with known hypoglycemic effect, that is they can reduce the blood sugar. So, when you consume these and you are also taking medication for blood sugar, diabetes, one of the components, one of the medication is glipizide, insulin is other normal. So, these effect of these drugs is also to reduce blood sugar levels, but if you are consuming this as a part of your diet and then consuming all these medications, the blood sugar levels can be alarmingly become low, which is again dangerous. Biogenic amines. Before this, so what we have as a part of your diet, like your papaya, mango, fenugreek or even St. John's wort. So these are part of your normal diet, taken either as a vegetable or a part of your normal crop or as a herb supplementation. And then you have the regular Western medicines which also you consume. So you cannot combine both without getting a medical opinion from a known practitioner, because some of them are antagonist, some of them will work synergistically. So unless you are advised to take these two things together, it is better to understand and then consume products, because herb drugs, there are specific interactions, and also the way the interactions happen would also be different. Different people react in different levels. Biogenic amines. Many varieties of animal or plant-based products are sources of what we call as biogenic amines. Dopamine and tyramine, these are natural components which are present in banana, cheese and avocado. And bacterial action on the amino acids found in the meats and fish can also produce putrescine and cadaverine. So cheese, banana, etc. contain dopamine. These are some things which we have as a part of our diet. Then meat and fish, which are also consumed regularly, if the bacteria act on the amino acids present in them, they will get converted into putrescine and cadaverine. Then you have the histamine and beta phenylethylamine. These two have been implicated as etiological agents in several outbreaks of food poisoning. So what do these biological amines, which are formed as a part of natural metabolism, do? They affect the vasculature, resulting in vessel constriction and subsequently increased blood pressure. So this is called as pressure amine effect. So the effect of consumption or the formation of biological amines is called as the pressure amine effect. Norepinephrine and dopamine or the catecholamines, these are all the pressure amines which are important as neurotransmitters in adrenergic nerve cells. These cause diet-induced migraine headaches and in some cases hypertensive crisis. So in many cases the formation of these pressure amines, especially if they are going to affect the neurotransmitter cells in the adrenergic nerve cells, can cause diet-induced migraine headaches. So if you are a person prone for migraine headaches and you suspect that it is because of the consumption of these particular, for example, a meat or a fish or a particular vegetable, then avoidance of that particular product or a food, or lessening the amount of that particular food in your diet, would give you relief from migraine headaches. Usually the added dietary load of bioactive amine is not of consequence, because such amines are carefully controlled by the action of the widely distributed enzyme monoamine oxidase (MAO). So food containing large amounts of biogenic amines are counterindicated in patients using MAO inhibitors such as antidepressants. So if you suspect that you have consumed a huge amount of food containing biogenic amines, then if you can use MAO inhibitors like antidepressant drugs, then the symptoms will not be produced. A typical example which is used is the antidepressant iproniazid. A typical example, specific example include the fava bean, which we have discussed earlier, favism, which contains dihydroxyphenylalanine, which is otherwise called as DOPA. This DOPA can be decarboxylated to form dopamine. The tyramine content can be high in the oriental preserved food like soy sauce, because they contain a safe preservation as well as long term storage can increase the component of this. So soy sauce, soybean paste and various condiments can promote the formation of higher amount of tyramine. Swiss cheese has been implicated in outbreaks of histamine poisoning, and this has been attributed to the organism Lactobacillus buccineri. And similarly, Spanish wines have been shown to increase the histamine and tyramine content within 5 days of manufacturing. So the initial levels would be quite low, but after 5 days after manufacture, the component of histamine and tyramine content has increased in them, which in turn can lead to biogenic amine poisoning. The other well-known component which can cause poisoning are the thujones. These form a part of the essential oils, the various oils which are present in various plants, and when they get coupled with each other, for example, monoterpenes with menthol-like smell, alpha and beta thujones are formed. These plants, which are also used for preparation of food and beverages. Typical example is the wormwood, the Artemisia absinthium, salvia, the Salvia officinalis, tansy, which is Tanacetum vulgaris, junipers, juniper species, cedars, cedar species, etc. So, the plants, these three parts or the plant parts or the leaves are normally part of the food as a condiment or used for preparation of beverages. So, this will have these alpha and beta thujones. The relative component or the content of these two stereoisomers depend upon which is the plant species which have been used for the preparation of the beverage. Thujones are constituents of food additives that are also used as flavors, food flavors. And if you trace the history, among the beverages consumed widely in the UK and the France, absinthe is the one that has aroused specific toxicological interest. So, the name originates from the Greek word absinthion, which otherwise means wormwood, and it is an emerald green alcoholic beverage which is extremely popular source of inspiration, especially for poets, artists of the bohemian lifestyle. So, it was like you consume this, your artistic talent would be enhanced, you would be able to paint or write or produce music. So, that in the bohemian lifestyle, the use of absinthe was very well known. The wide abuse of absinthe and the poisoning with the thujones promoted the prohibition of this beverage in many countries in the early 1910s, and it was seen that drinking of the absinthe caused convulsions, hyperactivity, excitement, hallucinations and psychosis that could lead the drinker to suicide. And in addition, the consumption of wormwood also causes nausea, vomiting, sleepiness, restlessness and dizziness. So, what started as a source of inspiration now becomes a poison. The main toxic component here is the terpenoid, which is neurotoxic, the alpha thujone, and the content of this alpha thujone is normally lower than the content of the stereoisomer, the beta thujone. So, alpha and beta thujones are present, but the exact ratio of both depends upon the plant which you are talking about, and normally in absinthe alpha thujone is less in comparison to the beta thujone, and the toxic effect of this alpha thujone is based on its capability to block the GABA receptor in the brain, and when there is no interaction with GABA, the normal inhibitor of the nerve impulses, the neuronal system moves out of control. See, GABA is a normal neuronal receptor which controls that the nerves should be stimulated, you should have active motor wiring, or these responses should be stopped. So, without GABA, when the GABA is blocked by thujone, then the total control or regulation of the GABA receptor becomes less, so that the neuronal system totally goes out of control. This we are seeing as in this particular lecture. We have seen certain components which are present, the biogenic amines as well as certain aromatic oil components whose toxic effects have been known from the prehistoric times. We will be seeing many of the other normal plant toxicants in the subsequent lectures. Thank you.